Hello and welcome back. Now let's look what exactly that twist is for this one. So when the Kabuliwala and Minnie meet, there is hardly any exchange of words there. So the Kabuliwala saw Minnie and became confused. Their good-natured humor of old also didn't work out. In the end, with a smile, he asked, "Girl, are you going to the in-laws' house?" So in that absence of warmth and cordiality and friendship, the Kabuliwala ends up asking that question, that age-old question, a question that used to provoke mirth in that little girl: "Are you going to the in-laws' house?" Earlier, she didn't understand what exactly the in-laws' house meant. Now, the grown-up girl on her wedding day is absolutely clear as to where exactly she is going to go after her wedding. So Minnie now understood what the in-law meant, so she couldn't answer the way she did in the past. So in the past, she used to laugh at the reference to the in-laws, because the Kabuliwala also used to suggest that he is going to whack his in-laws. So now there's no laughter, there's only shame. Rather, on hearing the question from Rahmat, her face became purple in shame. So there was embarrassment here and no laughter, and she abruptly turned around and left. So there is a abrupt break, not only in the conversation, there is also an abrupt break in the relationship too between Rahmat and Minnie. This brought back memories of their first meeting, and I felt an ache in my heart. So the I here refers to the father. So he is terribly unhappy. There is a pain in him to see that these childhood friends have not been able to recapture the warmth of the past relationship. Khushwant Singh, in his theory of the short story, said that a story can be as fantastic as possible, provided that there is a message to convey. Now, this story is not very fantastic. In fact, it's highly realistic. So where does this realism come from? Critics suggest that in the 19th century, the Afghan businessmen, or the Kabuliwalas as they were called in Bengal, came to sell hing or dry fruits, or were moneylenders. Calcutta, the capital of colonial India, was a popular destination. So Tagore uses this cultural connection from Kabul, which was present in Calcutta. So he uses this landscape and picks a certain character from that cultural facet to weave a story here. So every year in January or February, Tagore writes that Rahmat would go back to his home country to visit his family. A moneylender, he was unusually busy during this period collecting dues from his clients before the trip. So he was not only, the Kabuliwala was not only a dry fruit seller, he was also a moneylender. Sometimes he also sold his goods on credit, and he used to collect the money later and before he went on his trip. So this is very realistic backdrop that we have in the short story. So as I said, there is a resounding ring of truth in the socio-cultural fabric that we see or study in Kabuliwala. Now, we have seen the realistic part of it. Now let's look at the message that is there in the story and delivered to the readers. Now we know that the Kabuliwala is a dry fruit seller, and we also know that he is a money lender. So these two facts are very well established by Tagore in the story. But what exactly is revealed at the finale of the story is this information that Rahmat, this moneylender, this dry fruit seller, is also a father who is terribly missing his young child, a girl child. And this emotional life to Rahmat is what is very interesting and significant and shocking to know at the end of the story. Because all along we have seen only Minnie's father and his relationship as a domestic setup that the story tries to uphold, and suddenly at the end of it we have a window into other fathers who are missing their daughters back home. So what is the sting, what is the twist in the story? the sting and the twist in the story, in my interpretation, is the breakup of the father-daughter bond or relationship. So Minnie's relationship with her father is broken, as well as Rahmat's relation with his surrogate daughter Minnie is also broken, and the implication is that Rahmat's real daughter might have also forgotten her father, who is far away in Calcutta, who had been imprisoned for several years in Calcutta, and she might have also forgotten her father. So this breakup of human relationship, particularly the breakup of the father-daughter bond, is the key concern of the story in my interpretation. This statement that's there on the slide, she was hardly to be seen in her father's studio. In a way, I had almost ended all friendship with her. It's a very interesting statement in the entire story. The physical absence of Minnie from her father's study or studio or writing space is an indication of the emotional distancing that she has created between herself and her father. So this father very clearly states that I had almost ended all friendship with her, and this break is something that comes after the Kabuliwala's departure from Minnie's world. That's something we need to keep in mind too. So as I said, Kabuliwala's departure kind of coincides with Minnie's growing up, and this growing up means her replacing all the male friends with female friends of her age. So she has replaced the father, she has replaced before that the Kabuliwala, and she has replaced the Nabi, the groom who takes care of the horses in the family. So she gradually replaces all the male presences from her life, from her world, and starts to migrate towards the female associations, the female figures in her life. Now, when the Kabuliwala returns, I would call that a significant return, because he reminds or reinforces the fractures in the emotional trajectories of the father, especially towards his daughter Minnie. So his presence reinforces the notion that both real daughters and surrogate daughters do not belong to their fathers. They have to leave their father's home at some point or the other once they have grown up, and this is reinforced by the arrival of Kabuliwala and his attempts to kind of rekindle the relationship that he had with Minnie. So and it also kind of mirrors back the father's own break with his own daughter, and that creates a lot of emotional intensity to the story towards the finale of it. Now, I would like to talk about the first person point of view which is employed by Tagore in this story. So what exactly is a first person point of view? So it is a subjective narration. It is a narration on the part of somebody, a participant in the plot, not necessarily a major participant. It is a subjective narration by a character in the story, normally but not always a major participant, as I just mentioned. The narrator refers to himself or herself as I and relates events as they occur from memory or from hearsay, making judgments on these and other characters. So the narrator gives information based on his or her experiences of the world or his or her knowledge of something that has happened. So all the assessments that we get from a first person point of view is subjective. So readers experience narrative events from that character's point of view. So this is something we need to remember and interpret the story accordingly. So we do not have a very objective perspective, but a very subjective perspective of the story and things that happen in the story. And even character analysis made by the first person point of view is also very subjective and something that we need to keep in mind. So the first person point of view does not guarantee that they will interpret events in the same way as the character or that they will empathize with them. They are at liberty to find them naive, self-deceptive, or simply dislikable. Even a reader is also at liberty to find the first person point of view naive, self-deceptive, or simply dislikable. So this is something we need to keep in mind. So we do not need to buy the perspectives of the first person narrator. We can agree or disagree with the first person point of view. So in the story, Minnie's father is the narrator. He tells the story from his personal point of view. And we need to remember that he is an aristocrat and a writer who does not have a lot of experience of this world. But he does have a very good understanding of his daughter Minnie. He says, my 5-year-old daughter Minnie is chatty, is very loquacious and likes to talk all day long. It took her about a year after being born to acquire the talent for language, and since then she has not wasted a single wakeful moment of her life remaining silent. So he has a very good understanding about his small daughter. She is very loquacious, she is very feisty, and he likes her that way. That is apparent from his description. And he has his own perspective about Minnie's relationship with the Kabuliwala. He says that the moment I saw Minnie rushing out of the house and greeting her friend Kabuliwala, oh Kabuliwala, and the chums of incompatible years engaging in their familiar bantering and innocent laughter, my heart would fill with delight. So once he comes to learn of the bond between Minnie and the Kabuliwala, he accepts that, and he is also delighted by that. And this point of view also makes the reader sympathize or kind of accept the relationship between Kabuliwala and the little girl. So he has that effect on the readers. He kind of hints or nudges the reader in such a way that they tend to accept that relationship or look at that relationship with a lot of sympathy. He also has his initial understanding about the Kabuliwala, which he changes later on. So at the beginning he calls him a nuisance with a sack over his shoulder, and sometimes when he comes into the house he sees the Afghan, this huge figure sitting beside his daughter, and sometimes he is slightly frightened by that image, by that size and darkness, but then he realizes that they are just friends having a chat in the house. So that again, as I mentioned, gives him a lot of delight. And later, once the Kabuliwala has left the story world, the narrative viewpoint seems to suddenly shift, and this is the paragraph that suggests the shift in narrative viewpoint. And let me read this. And the way Minnie's inconstant heart behaved was embarrassing even to her father. She easily forgot her friend and found a new one in Nabi. The size, she was hardly to be seen in her father's studio. So these two statements in the story is jarring in the sense that the narrative viewpoint is not the first person narrative viewpoint. In fact, we have the third person point of view here, and that viewpoint is very, very critical of Minnie because she seems to have lost all her loyalty towards the Kabuliwala, the man who had been her friend for a long time, and that replacement is very, very hurtful because she tends to do the same thing to her father too later. So the point of view changes to the third person perspective, as I mentioned, and it kind of indicates the fickleness of childhood relations. Children tend to forget pretty quickly, and as I mentioned earlier, this viewpoint is also highly critical of Minnie's behavior because it's not only criticizing her attitude towards the Kabuliwala, it is also criticizing her attitude towards her own father, Minnie's father. Therefore, there is a slightly harsher understanding of Minnie's change in relations. The implications of this narrative is that it kind of hints at the or reveals the perceptible rift in relationships there, and we can also see the father trying to forge an incipient solidarity with the old friend Kabuliwala. So they seem to occupy similar positions in relation to Minnie's emotional trajectory. Both are forgotten, both are replaced in some sense by other figures, especially the girls of her own age. We have seen the father's perspective on Minnie, we have seen the father's perspective on Kabuliwala, whom he initially kind of looks at with annoyance and later comes to accept him as a friend for himself. And now let's look at the father's perspective on his wife. His wife seems to be a disciplinarian. She enforces existing structures of society in her attitude towards Minnie and in her attitude towards her husband and how she looks at the world. In fact, she reinforces the gender and class relationships within her household space. So, we have an example here to prove that. So, this is the quote that I am interested in here. Often her mother chides her to keep quiet, and the father says that I can never do that. Seeing the girl mute, silent, even for an instant seems so odd and unusual to me that I find it unbearable. So, the father doesn't like to see the girl child quiet, while the mother wants her to stop talking incessantly. So, there is a nice contrast here brought about by the father's assessment of the mother. The father admires the instinctive attitude of his little kid, while the mother suppresses it. The child's quietude seems to bother the father, whereas it does not seem to do anything for the mother. So, we have two very contrasting personalities and their attitude towards how a child should be raised. The mother, as I said, chides Minnie over the coin given by the Kabuliwala, whereas the father saves her daughter, his daughter, by taking her for a walk. So, it is very interesting how both the parents react to the incident when the Kabuliwala gives the coin back to Minnie. The mother is offended by that, and whereas the father just glosses over it. Now, here we have a character portrait of Minnie's mother here given by her husband. So, he says that Minnie's mother is naturally a timid person, a person who is very reserved, who is very apprehensive. Whenever she hears a slight noise from the street, she thinks all the tipplers of the world are rushing towards our house, tipplers, drinkers. After living for so many years in this world, though not so many, she has still not been able to temper her fear. The world is full of all kinds of horrors: thieves, robbers, drunkards, snakes, tigers, malaria, cockroaches, and European soldiers. So, the mother constantly seems to see threats everywhere, all around her, and these are some of the threats that she notices. The European soldiers is very interesting because we need to remember the socio-cultural historical context that the British Empire is ruling the Indian subcontinent. And these are some of the other horrors: thieves and robbers and drunkards, and she is again very apprehensive about the Kabuliwala too. So, this character description confirms to the stereotype of a woman of that particular period. Minnie's mother remained, as I said, very suspicious of the Kabuliwala, and she never warms up to this stranger from Kabul. However, we should also remember that she is a minor character. Minnie's mother is a minor character. She is talked about and not here. We always get reports about her from the father's perspective, but we do not actually get to hear her talk about her desires, her ambitions, and her fears and her worries for her child. Now, we also have an interesting subtext to Minnie's mother here. There is also a suggestion that perhaps Minnie's mother is not her biological mother, and this indication is given right at the beginning of the story when this little girl asks her father, "Dad, who is mom to you?" and he reflects about it. He does not spell it out, he reflects. He thinks that she is Minnie's sister-in-law, but he thinks that to himself and he does not convey it in words to the daughter, and he changes the topic and the girl leaves the room. So, this is very indicative about the character that Minnie's mother has, and possibly her attitude towards the little girl could be because of these factors as well. These are some things that we need to keep in mind and speculate about. That is it for today. I will see you in the next session.